I mean, there's a tendency to view refugees as a burden. But actually, that initial spending is actually a benefit because it creates demand for local goods and services, and it creates local good jobs. And then those benefits multiply once refugees start working, and once they start paying taxes or starting businesses and so on. Investing €1 or $1 in welcoming refugees can yield $2 within just 5 years. And it tells you that whether it is for businesses, whether it is for the economy as a whole, or whether it is for the refugees concerned, employing refugees needs to be a priority. I've come to New Zealand to speak about the business case for employing refugees, which is widely recognised in countries like the United States, increasingly in Australia too, but it's still something new in New Zealand, and it's very important to talk about it. There's this misleading impression that refugees are victims or charity cases, and yes, it's true, they've suffered a hell of a lot, but actually, typically they want to rebuild their lives. And that means that they're hardworking and they're highly motivated. Many of them have valuable skills. Others of them are willing to do difficult jobs that locals may not want to do. Their diversity is a big plus in terms of innovation and creativity. And crucially, they're workers that you hang on to. They have very high retention rates. Once they find a suitable employer, they tend to stay around. And also tend to spread the word in the refugee community, and that means that not only you retain good employees, but you find new ones too. I mean, the starting point is awareness. Businesses might not be aware that refugees make suitable employees. The second step is actually to find the right candidate, and it's really good news that Host International is partnering with Refugee Talent, which is an Australian online platform that matches refugees to employers, in order to help your business find the right candidate. At the same time, there may be issues around training and local work experience, and they can help with that too. Sometimes though, you just need to take the plunge. There can be initial teething in problems, but all the evidence shows that's more than repaid from getting a hard-working and loyal employee. And then last but not least, there may be language and cultural integration issues, and there are courses and facilities to help with that. And obviously language classes are a plus too. So basically, the takeaway from all this is that you may be going into hiring refugees out of a desire to do good, and that's great, but doing good can also be good business. In some cases, you'll find the local employees who will be obviously aware about the refugee crisis and will be delighted that their company is helping people in need, and will feel a very positive sense that they're not just going to work every day, but they're also making a difference. In other cases, there'll be people who feel threatened or afraid by people who are culturally different to them. They might have read negative stories in the media, and they may need training in cultural awareness. They may simply need opportunities to meet their new colleagues and to create bonds and become friends, so that there isn't the misunderstanding and the feeling of threat. One thing that refugee entrepreneurs need, like every person who's starting a business, is access to capital. So small business loans can make a real difference. The other thing that they need is contacts, and there are networks that can help with that. Like in Australia, there's an incubator called Thrive, which is specifically designed for that. And then they need advice, and business mentoring can make a really big difference. And some of them are going to go on to be mega successful. So for example, the co-founder of Google, Sergey Brin, was a refugee. Others are going to be starting small local family businesses, and they're going to make a good living and they're going to make a contribution too. Well, my think tank, Open, is doing a new study, international study on refugee entrepreneurship, and I think it's a fantastic and overlooked issue. Often because refugees can't find jobs initially, they set up their own businesses and they end up creating fantastic businesses that create wealth, that create jobs for local people. There's a guy called Mohammed who ran an upholstery business in Damascus, and he was forced out by the civil war there. He ended up in Germany, in the city of Kiel, and there he met a guy called Christian who runs a company that makes sails for boats. And he'd been desperately looking for people with suitable skills and couldn't find them. And then he met Mohammed, took him on part-time, it became full-time. And now Mohammed runs a new line of business, which is sun awnings. And it's a family affair. Both his sons also work in the business. And thanks to Mohammed and indeed to other refugees from Syria and Afghanistan, that business is expanding and doing great. And then you've got another example, which is from Australia. There is a local poultry producer called Loverduck, that's a funny name, in the town of Nil, which is near enough Melbourne. And again, it couldn't find suitable employees. And through the National Settlement Agency, they had some refugees from Myanmar. They took some of them on. And now they employ a large number of Karen refugees. And that's obviously been fantastic for the refugees themselves. And it's also revitalised what was a small, dying town that young Australians were leaving. And that's benefited all the local businesses in the community too. And then there's a third example, which is about diversity. Very often businesses are sceptical of people who might be internationally trained, don't have local work experience. The Business Development Bank of Canada takes a different approach, actually thinks that diversity is a positive thing. And so it hired an IT engineer called Mustafa, not just because of his technical skills, but because he had a broad experience of working in different ways and brought different perspectives. And they thought that enhanced the performance of the bank. And there's strong evidence to show that's the case. For example, McKinsey find that companies that have the most diverse workforces tend to have a stronger financial performance. So whether it is someone with high skills like Mohammed, whether it is refugees with less skills but a willingness to do hard work like the Karen refugees, or whether it is the IT engineer with diverse perspectives, in those three ways can make a contribution to different businesses. My grandfather, or my grandparents, were refugees. When he arrived in the United States as a refugee after the war, he had a PhD in aeronautical engineering, but his first job was in a factory making wooden floors, and he was absolutely delighted to have it because he was starting to rebuild his life and contributing to his new home. And all the studies from UNHCR and others show exactly the same thing, that refugees are desperate to rebuild their lives, to start off again, to pull themselves off the floor and get on with their life. And so give them the opportunity to succeed, you won't regret it.